Welcome to Beyond Words Presents. I'm your host, Whitney Diffenderfer, and this week I am very excited to be here with Elisa Medhus, the author of our previous book, My Son in the Afterlife. Hi, Elisa.
Hi, Whitney. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, and we are also here with Jamie Butler, the head of the Center for Love and Light, as well as renowned medium and spirit translator for Erik Medhus, who is also joining us here today.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Jamie. Hi, Erik.
Erik says hello.
And Erik is actually the author of our newest book. It comes out today, which we were very excited about, called My Life After Death, which we've got right here, one of the first copies. And we'll talk a lot more about that as we get into the interview. But though, for those of you who are watching, if you have any questions, be sure to use the Google Hangouts app, or you can use the hashtag BWPresents to ask your questions, because I'm sure you'll have lots of them. I know I do. So the first question that I have for all of you guys is, like, this was an amazing collaborative effort. You guys put in a ton of time to actually take the time. What My Life After Death is a very true, very frank account of Erik's life once he took his life and thereafter. And it's from his own perspective, which is absolutely mind-blowing to me. I have my own challenges in wrapping my mind around this. And my question really for you guys is, what was the process like? What was this like for you? Elisa, I don't know if this is the first time you've heard all of the details that Erik shared.
Well, I will be frank with you and say that transcribing what he said about his death was very difficult, because he shared some details that I really didn't know and kind of wish I didn't. So there's that. But after the goodbyes, after his visit to his own funeral, and once he crossed over, it just became some wonderful adventure. And I have to say that because of my transcribing his memoir, I don't really grieve over him anymore like I used to. I kind of miss him, like he's on some study abroad program and he's going to come back any day with a duffel bag full of dirty laundry, but I don't have that horrible, profound grief that I used to have. And I think it's because I know how he's doing, and he's doing great, and I know what his life as a spirit is like, and I know so many details about this new place he calls home.
Erik, what's it like to hear that from your mom?
So Erik jumps in, first of all says hi to his mom, that he loves his mom, and he says hi to everybody watching. He goes, come on, get engaged, send some questions. He's like, I'm ready to answer everything, man. And he said a few choice words, but he thought he'd use the word frank since everybody else was using it. He said, frankly, hearing my mother recount this, he said, I had a flashback of when I was going through all the details of my death. And he said, yeah, I figured I would lay everything out there, be frank, and put to rest my mom's imagination. He was, dude, one of the hardest things was seeing my mom go off in her head about the world of what if, where was I, what am I doing, blah, blah, blah. And then it was so much worse than what was actually happening to me. So in writing the book, I got to share with my mom not just exactly where I am, but I got to share with her a peace of mind, a peace of heart. Like how she said her perspective of our relationship totally changed. And he goes, I can't wait to help other people's relationships, the one who's physically reading the book and the one who's not holding the book, the one who's crossed over, and get them together so that they can have a better relationship too.
And that brings me directly to my next question, is what is it that you hope that people will get out of this? Like, what is the number one thing that you want people to take, both living and in the afterlife, away from having your book in existence?
Erik jumps in. He goes, Mom, me first. Okay. What I want them to know is that death is a bleeping friend. We're going to bleep out those words. Death is a companion. It's a transition. We need to stop with the whole fear, being paralyzed, relying on, he's going off really quick, relying on society, culture, other people's belief systems to fit yourself. He goes, I really want people to be empowered in knowing that what they believe in is what they're going to create in their afterlife experience. He goes, honestly, I tried not to use the word afterlife, but English language really doesn't have anything else for me to use, and just to clarify that we're speaking about something that is beyond this one, afterlife fit, but time's not linear. He does this, like, yeah, maybe for later.
And Elisa, what is it that you hope for people to get out of this?
I hope people who have lost somebody heal from this, like I have. I want them to know that, like Erik said, death is not the end. It's just a transition to another dimension, and your loved one is still the same. They just don't happen to have a body, that's it. And they don't have the mental and physical illnesses that may have plagued that body in life. So there's no reason why you can't continue to have a relationship. My relationship with Erik is much richer than it was when we were alive, and it was very close then. So yes, continue to have a relationship with your loved ones. And there's many ways you can do that. I'm sure Erik can explain it, or Jamie, if you want.
Yes, please, because I know that is the question that is begged for me, because I would love to know how to still have a relationship. Like, my grandfather passed, both my grandfathers and my grandmother passed away, and to know how to interact with them would be a blessing.
Erik.
He jumped in. Yeah. Mom, yes. He said, absolutely. Can you hear me? Do I not have sound?
You're cutting out a little bit.
Is he messing with me?
Don't mess with her, Erik.
All right. You let me know if I can't be heard, and then
I'll
change computer or something. I'll fix it. Erik loves doing the little pranks and the electronic failure things. Happen so frequently when he's around. And not like that when I communicate to my grandfather, who tends to make everything much better and easier. That Erik was chiming in and saying that to have that relationship beyond human life, he said it's really going to challenge us to not live within our traditional five senses. We tend to live within the boundaries of what we're taught. And if we stay within what we really know, like what was taught to us from a book or an authority figure that we respected, or what somebody told us was the truth and real, he says we tend to take away our experiences. We stay within this realm, and we have more than five senses. And even those traditional five senses that we have, we can use them differently to communicate to the subtle energy that's all around us. You're made of energy. Isn't it true, Whitney? That was almost spot on the way that he said it. That was really funny. I don't mean to laugh at myself saying it, but it was funny. Okay.
And so true.
In control, yeah. And he said, so once we discover how to go beyond what our five senses is, and he goes, here's an example, right? You sit in the dark, you leave your eyes open, your brain says, it is dark. We can no longer see a horizon line. We don't know the depth of the room. But if we stay there long enough and kind of fall into a relaxation, our eyes then begin to seek out other things to see. We go beyond what we believe is our small visual spectrum scale, and we start to see this subtle light energy, and it has color, and it's not defined as the cells in the back of your eye that your retina is viewing because of the dying light and da-da-da-da-da and your cones. He's going on, and he said, get it? So we can use smell, we can use physical sensation. If you want to continue on to communicate to those who've passed on, you've got to figure out which way do you learn information the easiest way. Are you like a visual person? Are you a kinetic person? Do you like to touch, act it out, poses? And so do you have to listen to it? Do you have to listen to somebody say something and then you just get it practically? Because that totally wasn't me. That's why I didn't like school so much. But once you figure it out, then you can use that sense and heighten it. So if you're a visual person, that term, it's clairvoyancy, Erik. He goes, what's that term? Clairvoyancy. Where you have visions or words pop in your head or video play. He said, then heighten that awareness. Because a lot of what we have to get through when we take our traditional five senses and kind of grow that is our belief system, is it real? Right? So he goes, everybody's watching. Are you watching? If you're watching this, I'm including you, he says. Everybody watching, if you're trying to communicate to subtle energy, to your grandfather, to the beyond, he said, why don't you switch gears in your head get out of the logical human experience and get into more of a pretend. I'm going to pretend that it's real. Because when you pretend, you open up possibilities. And then once you have that experience, whether you're asking questions or you're perceiving touch, after it's done, then go ahead and click out of your pretend mode and get back into logic and ask all the bleeping questions that you want to ask about what just happened to you. And then you can analyze it and see if it's going to be real enough for you to say, I believe in it. But if you don't give it that opportunity, then how in the bleep are you going to get outside of that little box of what you've been taught is your reality?
Yeah.
Because, Whitney, what are you going to do?
Well, I love that because even coming up to this interview, I was really nervous because I don't know, I don't know, do I believe in where Erik is? I don't know if I believe in being able to communicate with that, but I love the idea of just pretending and just saying like, okay, so it does. Let's see what happens, because I don't know that I don't either. I'm just I'm exploring it for myself, and that's why I find your book so fascinating, because it is actually something that is written from the afterlife with help from those here. But it's just, so for me, I guess I love the idea of going and sitting in a room and having it be dark and just seeing what I see and letting myself explore.
He said, if you do that, Whitney, he says, I'll come over, I'll sit with you.
Thank you.
Because it goes for anybody. He said, I love the channeling work family. I love the people who read the blog and keep up with what
You're breaking up a little bit, Jamie.
Something. Is it okay now? If
Yes.
I keep going?
Yeah.
We pushed him back. If whoever is trying to get outside of their five senses, and he says if they're engaged in the channeling Erik family, he loves to come and sit with them, prank them, kind of give them something that they can't logically explain.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's also, I think there's a level of, at least for me, and I think for a lot of people who are inquisitive into this world, it's like there's almost a level of fear about the lack of knowledge and not knowing, being so sure of what we've always known, like he says. Like you were saying, Erik, it's like, we're so used to the world that we've been taught and that we know, that to go beyond that is actually, it's a little bit scary. And so do you have advice for people like me?
He said, yeah, I want you to remember that you chose to come to this life, and one of the biggest thrills about choosing this is that you got to forget all the information that was beyond this. You got to simplify yourself. That's the beauty about being human. He said, that's what I like. I like supporting the simple acts of living, which is paying attention to how you feel. So when you get real with how you're feeling, call it authentic emotions. Mom, you had some words for it earlier.
Oh, I can't remember. Are you kidding me? I'm 60. No, but, this reminds me of when we were going through the whole, if I remember correctly, the earth is flat, no, the earth is round transition. And Arthur Schopenhauer said that truth goes through three phases. First it's ridiculed, then it's scorned, and eventually it's accepted as self-evident. Now we went through that with the whole earth is flat versus earth is round. Now we're going through that with spirituality. And I think one of the problems we have is, it's hard to believe in something you can't see. And most of us are not like Jamie. We can't see spirits. But you have to think about this. We can't see radio waves either, but we know they exist. Just because you can't see something does not mean it does not exist.
Well, and there's been quite an abundance of scientific proof as well.
Mm.
And I know I keep thinking about like in Proof of Heaven or in any of those books, written by scientists about their personal afterlife experiences or whatever that is. And I would love to hear Erik and Elisa and Jamie, you guys' perspectives on those books that have gotten so popular. So like Proof of Heaven, Heaven is for Real, The Afterlife of Billy Fingers. I could go on and on and on and on. And Erik, I would love to hear what you think of Teresa Caputo.
He's like, Teresa. He's like, I love her frank, blunt attitude. It's like when you know something, why can't you share it? What the bleep is wrong with that? And he goes, those personalities, I thrive off of that. But a lot of people get shocked. They're kind of like, what the, hey, I'm backing away from that. He said, but it's different when you've been able to communicate to the beyond, to subtle energy for so long. It's old hat. It's like, do you have to stop and think about how to smell something? No, and you don't mind saying, hey, you smell great. And that seems to be okay. But if we use our sixth sense and then just go, hey, your dead dad's here, how's that going? And they go, what? That's just not coming out right these days. Like my mom says, we're on the precipice. Nice word, Erik.
Yeah.
The precipice of getting into that. And he was sharing that once science starts stepping up its game and really being able to describe, he goes, right now what we're getting is authority figures that are high up in rank having these sixth sense experiences where they're communicating and engaging in energy, and they're able to share that story, and they're reaching the general mass level, average peak level. And this is where the wave is about to get big and just saturate all of us, where we hit that peak moment where it becomes part of a belief system. It becomes self-evident. It becomes true. And he goes, we're not quite there yet. We're going to get all these stories collected by the physicians, by the neurosurgeons, by the average Joe, by the minister, the priest, the pope, even within religion, within spirituality, within atheist people like my mom. And we're going to collect those stories, and then science is going to go, oh, you know what, by the way, we've got equations to prove that and show that. He goes, dude, in 5 years, we're going to look back and we're going to laugh our bleeping butts off, there you go, and say, remember the time when we didn't believe in this? Oh, how silly. And he goes, and we're all part of that movement. It's so incredible that you're picking up the book and reading this, because it's turning the light on in everyone who touches the book and knocking this over like dominoes and making it a big thing.
And why now? I keep asking this to all of our different authors, because they come on and they're talking about how right now we're in this incredible time of change and open-mindedness. And I'm just curious, from your perspective, Erik, why is it now? What is it about now that's so precipice-y, I guess?
He said a lot of colorful words, and this and blah, 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 blah. He goes, it would have been a long time ago, but you people are slow. You learn so slow. He goes, but again, I'm highlighting that because that's one of the joys about being on Earth, is that you act like you don't remember, and you grow into the knowledge, and it's new, and it's real. So it's fascinating all in the same time. But yeah, it would have been a long time ago. So why is this special? Is because science is catching up to what spirituality really is. And the term spirituality for me is to being able to define communication to subtle energy. So that could be telepathic, that could be psychometry, that could be communication to the dead or to animals, to trees. That energy in and of itself is an intelligent source, and that can communicate.
So what do you guys have to say to skeptics? Because they are all over the place, and Elisa, I know you were one. So I mean, I would love to talk about this like with my husband, but my husband would laugh in my face. And I just, how do you talk about it with a skeptic? How do you open their minds?
Well, I don't go out of my way to force it down people's throats, because it just doesn't work. They have to have their own path. I had mine, and it was very bumpy and very long, but I arrived to become a believer. I would tell skeptics to try to be an open-minded skeptic. That's healthy, be open to information. Don't be a closed-minded skeptic. Now, those are people that are motivated by fear. And so if you challenge their beliefs or their lack of belief, then they act like corner dogs, and they snarl, and they can be very brutal. Those are the people that will leave nasty comments on my YouTube videos, etc. So there are those, and I just don't think that's healthy. So find your own way. You look to science for some of the answers. Quantum physics has grown tremendously, and its connection to spirituality and consciousness and the soul has just become so much richer.
Absolutely. And Erik, what's your perspective? What would you say?
Erik shouts out, "Ditto."
All right.
But he did make a point. He said if we sit here and say, what do we say to a skeptic? He goes, you're asking me to judge that situation. That's like me saying my favorite flavor of ice cream is chocolate, therefore we need to eliminate all the other flavors in the world and just have chocolate because it's the best. Believers aren't the best. Skeptics aren't the best. Open-mindedness, being on the fence, being able to see either one side or the other, is the best position. And I know by even saying the best is placing a judgment on it. It's saying that one is greater than the other. But it's that human language that's just robbing me the experience of really sharing with you exactly what I want it to mean. So it's not really taking one side or the other, like my mom said, an open-minded skeptic. That was a great way of saying it. Get on the fence, people. If you're a firm believer, get on the fence too. You know, because you're going one extreme and you're leaving the other out of it, you're not going to get a whole experience.
That's fantastic. I love the idea of gosh, I guess for so long we've just looked at people like believers, and we've been, I guess society has said, yeah, they're crazy, and that's just like, and push them off into a corner. And I suppose that's protecting ourselves, protecting, like the skeptics, it's protecting themselves because they're believing, it protects their beliefs, right?
He said, you're so beautiful, Whitney.
I'm just seeing, I'm seeing it completely differently nowadays. Like, just after you said that, that's so cool. And so what else? I have so many questions. There are so many people, and I feel even just horrible. I just want to ask this question, Elisa, because I know that you have gone through this, and you even talked about it already. And some people look at your story and they say it's just the story of a grieving mother who won't let go of her son. What do you have to say to them?
Well, it took me 4 years to believe that Erik still exists. I mean, I fought tooth and nail to not believe in it. Even though I saw him jumping on my bed, I got a phone call from him. We'd have airsoft BBs drop from the ceiling. We'd watch, unplugged appliances turn on and faucets turn on, and just things that defy logic. Even though he actually appeared before my militantly atheist father and startled him. So even through that, I only got to 90% sure, because I did not want to believe. If I did believe, I thought that then I would be vulnerable. Because what if I woke up one morning and found out it was nonsense? That would be losing Erik all over again, but permanently, and I just couldn't do that. So this is not the wishful thinking of a grieving mother. On the contrary.
That's beautiful. I love that idea that believing in this is actually making you vulnerable, and it's opening up to that possibility, and it's letting yourself be put out there, and for people who do believe, and people who are on the fence, like Erik says, it's really opening and making yourself vulnerable to skeptics, and to possibly having it shut down.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm looking through my questions, seeing there are, so here's my question too. Erik, there are people alive today that you talk to all the time, and through your blog, channelingerik.com, you guys have made an immense difference for hundreds of thousands of people. What is the one thing that you wish everybody out there could get who is living today? Just get it.
If I had to pick one thing, Erik says, I would hope everybody would understand that we are emotional beings, that we're not just the human being. We don't resonate only in logic, analytical, pro and con world, yes and no world, black and white world, but we are emotional beings. If we move and make decisions through that place within us and acknowledge how we really feel, and not start thinking about, oh, I might not say, I might hurt their feelings, or I might not be feeling the right thing, or I might be off base. If we just heart-centered, made decisions from there, the whole human existence would change.
Yeah, Erik, I hate to interrupt you, but you were breaking up a little bit. But yeah, you tell us that ordinarily humans think first, and then they have a thought that will produce an emotion, and that emotion will cause you to react a certain way or make a certain choice. He said we shouldn't do that. We should feel first, acknowledge our feelings, and then let that produce a thought, and let that thought create a reaction or choice. Is that right, Erik?
I give my mom 5 stars, 2 thumbs up.
Oh, I give you 5 stars and 5 kisses and 2 hugs.
Well, and I think it's really interesting that how do you turn that around? Like, what are steps that we can take here? Because I'm even sitting here and I know that I'm thinking, I'm not feeling. And what are exercises or things that I can do to get more in touch and use that and be in touch with the feeling instead of the thinking?
Erik says that it's a discipline. It's something that you have to train yourself to acknowledge exactly how you're feeling before your mouth opens. And he goes, you do it internally. You don't have to shout it out, I'm happy, and then say, how are you doing? That you can do it internally, but then, how are you doing? Because if you know what you're feeling, and you know that your energetic body is shining, is put onto the environment around you and to the person you're communicating to, even if it's on the phone, even if we're on the computer like this. He goes, my emotions, what I'm expressing is hitting you, Whitney, sitting all the way over there. Time and space have no control over us. So the homework would be, acknowledge how you feel before you say something. Once you get that underneath your belt, then you're going to start acknowledging how you feel before you have internal thoughts. And he goes, that's really where you want to sit. And getting the right definitions of vulnerability, of trust, and compassion. He goes, because I think those are a little askewed for most of us on Earth.
What would you say would be the right definitions of those?
He said for vulnerability, a lot of humans see that as a weakness, as if they share something that they're going to be attacked or pulled apart, I see vulnerability as being powerful, that if you are to express first off what you're afraid of, what you're scared of, or what your weakness is, then nobody can hook into it and go against you or use it like blackmail or attack you. All of a sudden, you're bleeping powerful. Compassion. He says, I think people feel like doing a favor for someone is compassionate. Because that's really not the way it goes, man. Compassionate is showing empathy, being able to identify emotionally with someone. It's not about giving help, it's not about doing a favor, and it's definitely not about giving advice. Trust. He says trust is a hard one because people say that it's more of a logical trait. I don't trust you, like I don't believe in you. But really, trust is when emotions arrive to somebody that you're communicating to, be it a dog or a tree or anybody else, and they hold it with great care. And they don't bruise it, they don't damage it, and they give it back to you the same way. And they're consistent. Because that's a big blinking bleepy button thing. It's a big thing. That was a lot of words.
It's a beautiful definition of trust that completely redefined it for me. Thank you, Erik. And I just want to let everybody out there watching know that today is the launch day of My Life After Death, Erik's new book, Erik's first book too, right? It's your first time author, right?
Yes, I'm a first-time author. You guys go buy my book.
Yeah, well, we have it for sale on our website. It is actually, it's the ticket price of this is $16, but we're selling it for $10 in honor of today's online hangout. So you can go to www.beyondword.com/Erik with a K, and you can get that for $10. So run on there, get it, and read this amazing recounting of what happened, because I've only gotten through like the first couple of chapters, but it is just absolutely mind-blowing. I can't believe some of the stuff you share and the detail and, as you say, the vulnerability that I'm sure that you have displayed in writing this book, Erik. It's amazing.
So thank you so much, Whitney. I'm really proud of it too. Thank you.
Oh, that's awesome. And Jamie, I just have a question for you. It's like, what was it like to be a part of this journey, to be the spirit translator for Erik, and to be sharing such a powerful story?
I look at it, it's a powerful story. Just being around Erik is challenging for me. You know, before he came into my life, I had a good thing going. It was very sweet and kind of docile, communicating to loved ones. And Erik came in with a whole new bag of language, a new way of looking at things. You know, and my first instinct was like, oh my God, am I being bullied? Is this right? Like, what's going on? And it's not. He's really himself, and he's compassionate the way that he described it. And he encourages me and pushes my limits. So I'm really, really happy that he saw me as a good fit, that Elisa sees me as a good fit to be Erik's translator and voice. And it's definitely not an easy gig, because sometimes he'll say things that I don't believe in. You know, but that's not part of my job, is to insert my 2 words. And Erik will always kind of high-five me sometimes. He's like, you're good at being on the fence. You know, thanks for being on the fence for me today, because he could tell I was like, I would never say that. Oh my God, I would never say that. And he's like, say it, Jamie. I was like, so it's a hard thing to be put in that position, and he has a lot of respect for it, and I respect him.
Well, and I love the phrase spirit translator. The first time I ever heard it was with you, and it just invokes the idea of a translator, and it's exactly like you say. It's like you don't insert yourself at all. You just say exactly what they were saying, and I think whenever you use the word like medium or channeler, then a lot of people bring a lot of baggage to that. But spirit translator is it's just what it is.
It's exactly what it is. I'm the person in the middle with a lot of voices.
Absolutely. And Erik, I would love it if you could tell a little bit of the story that's in here, like maybe a little bit of your favorite part, just because it's something that people have never heard. Like, we've heard people going into the afterlife, we've heard them coming back, that kind of thing. But for you to actually have taken the full journey, could you share just a little bit with our audience watching today?
So, Whitney, is the full journey like the full Monty?
Yeah, sure.
I think he's just trying to push the buttons. He goes, I went all the way. I'm not a quitter, Mom. I'm not a quitter.
I know you're not.
I think what would be so intriguing, just by watching other people transition into this place. For us, it looks like a birthing process. It's really an amazing experience on our end, though I know that culture on Earth still views it as a big separation and a lot of sadness and grief, because that's going to change over the years. He goes, let's get happy about that one, right? Woo! Yeah. But what I see people waking up to here is understanding what it's like to be emotionally, unconditionally loved. No strings attached, nothing. He's like, we get glimpses of it in human life, these small slices of it, like when we look at a child playing and we make eye contact with a stranger, and there's this warmth that comes with it. There's unconditional, I need nothing from you, and I love everything about you. He goes, just creep over you.
Erik needs to move back a little bit, I think.
Again?
Yes.
Thanks for keeping me on point, please. God, he can be ironic sometimes. He's like way far away and shouting at me. I was like, it doesn't have to do that, but whatever. Sometimes he does very human things. I think it's just to kind of get my goat or make a smile. Please let me know if it's acting up again, and we'll pause. So he says another thing besides that compassionate, unconditional love is the colors and smells, the sounds that are here go far beyond what your instrument and your human body is able to feel. And it's a little unfathomable. You know, you can't imagine this right here. dude, I can think of like 5 other colors that you can't see right now. And he goes, can you? He goes, no, your brain has a hard time just wrapping around one. He goes, but easily dozens and dozens of more is here than there. So one of my favorite experiences was going out into what I would consider nature and witnessing the energy around the items, around what we would call the trees, the animals, and how it was so open. You could understand exactly what they were feeling. You could know what they were thinking. And it wasn't like I was spying on them. It wasn't like I wasn't supposed to know. It's like we had this understanding that everything is open. There's no negative feeling. And not to say that's good or bad. I'm just trying to give you an idea so that you can comprehend, like a struggle. There's no blackmail. There's no jealousy. All of that vibrational energy, it doesn't exist here. It just kind of evaporates. So you're walking around in what you might design positive, but for me, unconditional, no secrets, all accepting place. And he goes, it takes a while to get bleeping used to. Because you're thinking, what the hell is happening here? Is the other shoe about to fall? Am I about to have a struggle? And it doesn't come down that way. So, you get your sea legs on when you get here. The image was really cool. It was like happy legs. It's hard to explain.
I like when, Erik, when you talk about the insect portal in the book. That's kind of cool. You want to tell them about that?
He says, when the bugs die?
Oh, yeah. All those mosquitoes I slap.
My mom, the #1 murderer of mosquitoes.
No, I actually don't. I shoo them away. I can't.
He says it's true. She doesn't smack them. She blows on them mostly. Anyways. Yeah, every living being on Earth comes here. And he says you can imagine how many insects die every second. He's like, can you even wrap your head around that? It's like there's a spark of light to every single one of them. And so when you're attuned to who's crossing over into these higher dimensional planes, he's like, it's a treat watching everything spark up and come back and come back and come back. Is that what you were talking about, Mom?
Yeah, and like how a lot of the spirits love to sit around this insect portal and watch as these millions and millions of mosquitoes and other birds come through like little tiny sparklers, like the 4th of July, all the time. And you guys sit there and welcome that energy back.
Yeah, it's like mass breeding grounds for firefly, if you can think of that on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds amazing. I love fireflies.
Me too.
So, I know that one issue that some people have had with your previous book, Elisa, is that they're worried, and with the blog, is that people are worried that it promotes suicide. And I know, Erik, that you have been a staunch, you stay there and you say, I'm not saying that this is a good thing. I'm not saying that you should. And so how would you counsel people who are dealing with that in their lives?
Well, I'll speak first. Erik has told me that there are things he misses about Earth. He misses the anticipation. There's no feeling of, ooh, what's going to happen next? And also the feeling of touch. He noticed the first thing he noticed about his new spirit body was when he tried to grab the gun, his hand slipped right through. And when he tried to touch his face, his hand slipped right through. So he said he lost that, what he calls a stop mechanism. So you can't hug and get that same hug you do when we used to hug. And he also says that when you take your life, you don't leave your problems behind. You take them with you. You still have those problems. Furthermore, you create a lot more problems for yourself because of all the grief you leave in your wake. And you are completely aware of every heart breaking, every tear falling, and it can be excruciatingly painful. Plus, you also understand that there are missed opportunities that were created because of your choice. For example, maybe you were supposed to give birth to a daughter who would find a cure for diabetes. Mm-hmm. Now you know that's not going to happen, and so millions of people are going to, or countless people are going to suffer and possibly die.
So that's something that you would realize after you'd already crossed over.
Right. It would be too late at that point.
I goes, first of all, Mom, don't guilt people into living. He goes, but what you're saying, it is true. He goes, but that's not the case in every single one. He goes, so I don't want people to listen to it and then feel guilty that they have the thought of wanting to leave. Another point is, you said, Mom, leaving so much grief in your wake, and he was like, we can't say that that's a real thing because grief is an emotion, and emotions are created by each individual. Like, you choose to have the grief. It's the dying of the me that was in the relationship of the person who died. And so that's the grief. It's the change. But not everybody feels that way, and you're not responsible for other people's reactions. Because when you're authentically emotional, you're not responsible for other people's actions. So don't keep living to stop people from grieving. But I will say, I don't stand up and condone suicide. But I also don't stand up and say, don't do it either. As I've said to everything else, be on the fence. I will say to anybody who's thinking about it right now, whether it's because of bipolar like myself or not being able to connect to life in a way that they have wanted to, but they can't define why, and they've done the therapies and everything, whatever your situation is, you chose to live this life. You chose to live this life. And I will encourage you to push it to the fullest limit possible. Because trust me, if you don't do that and you get here, the bleeping bleep that's on your plate that you left in that life that you didn't complete is a bleeping mess and so much harder to handle here than on Earth. Earth is definitely easier to get your work done, to get your learning done, right? So I pushed myself as far as I could. And I got to that place where I was at the end of the line. And when those who have been at the end of the line, they're all dead now because they got to the end of the line, they know it. I would like for people who are not thinking about leaving life and they have some judgment on suicide as seeing it as casual as death of cancer, death by accident, that it is a way of dying. It is not meant to say, oh, if you went that way, you were a piece of, you fill in the blank this time.
Well, interesting thing happened today. A little backstory first. Erik has not only pranked me and my family and friends, he also pranks and visits blog members all over the world. It's so common that we have a share your story button on the blog and people. But I had an interesting one today. Kim Babcock, who is a medium, saw a young boy as a client. And Erik came in and started talking to him and said, dude, don't kill yourself. And there was nothing this guy said and no expression on his face that would have tipped Kim off to the fact that he was suicidal. She had no idea. It came out of the blue. And the young man just started sobbing. And when he left, he talked to Erik for a long time. When he left, his parting words were, you just saved my life today.
That's amazing.
Erik's just standing there with his hand over his heart, just smiling. He goes, I advocate for people to keep going. Keep going. Just like when you have cancer, keep going because you can cure that stuff.
And I love what you're saying because it points to the judgment that we have on this earth that just exists. I don't know, society, wherever it came from, but it's like we assign that judgment to so many things, and I don't think that we realize how much judgment we have. And we assign that judgment to suicide. We assign that judgment, like when you think of somebody who's dying from cancer, I mean, it's a tragedy. It's very sad. And then when we look at somebody who's committed suicide, we're kind of like, yeah. And there's just a different thinking there.
My girl Whitney gets it.
Well, and I'm curious, Erik, what is it like to watch people on Earth? Like, when you come down and you prank your mom or you prank people who go on the blog, is that, I don't know, I guess I have this image for myself of you being in a completely different place up there, over there, wherever that is. And so do you just sometimes come on down and play around? Is that, I'm just so curious.
He said yes, but it's not like a come on down kind of a thing. He says, you know, we're right around you. We're just in a different dimensional plane. So if you can imagine, like maybe I grunt my face, like, I'm not going to do that. Imagine he grunts his face, and then his energy gets dense, and he can kind of show up on our dimensional plane, our 3D, 4D, 5D, however you want to scientifically explain it. And then he can use his vibrational energy in a lower pace and start pushing on things to create a reaction, to create a movement. And he goes, yeah, and if you're listening to me, I'm laughing the whole damn time I'm doing it because it's so much fun.
That's awesome. Well, and Erik, when you crossed over, it's like you discovered a new purpose for yourself. Like on Earth, you were going through, you were suffering from being, excuse me, from bipolar disease, and then you got to the afterlife, and you're discovering who you actually are. How did that happen? What was that like for you?
It was very subtle, and it came through how my mom processed my death and how she discovered that death didn't have to incorporate separation. And when she started talking about it, and she started asking me to speak up, in not just in behalf of her, but as Erik, as son of my mom, we started using our conversation to help other people see the ease of it and kind of highlight the digestible parts of spirituality and creating a new relationship. And through that, I felt like it was everything that I wanted to do on earth with people. It was everything that I really wanted to express, but that my disease just wouldn't let me follow through with it. And I don't know if I would be able to come to that realization without my mom going through her process. It did depend on her stepping up and stepping out. So here's my standing ovation for my mother. He's already standing, but now he's clapping.
Aw, thank you, baby.
Well, and you guys you've made such a huge difference for so many people on the blog channelingerik.com. I know that that has been a resource for so many people who have lost somebody in their lives, or who are just on the fence like me, or who are believers and are looking for a community. And so what is your goal with Channeling Erik? What are you hoping to continue to create? What's next?
Well, I still want to continue to let Erik share his insights about not only death and the afterlife, the life of a spirit, but also different things that have to do with the human experience. Even, the spiritual aspects of child abuse and spiritual aspects of certain diseases. There's just so much that is involved in the human experience that is so confusing and very often painful for us. Why are we here to suffer, for example? So Erik talks a lot about things like that, and it really, really helps.
And just, jumping in. He goes, oh, like I need an invitation, Whitney? When he puts his hand up like a Southern belle. He said, and just to hash over the basics. My mom and I started this years ago. Well, my mom started it. I tagged along. And a lot of times people are coming back to the website, but they're just really interested in the basic things, so we'll bring that back. But I'm interested in getting out there. He calls it in person. How's that going to work?
Yeah, how's that going to work, Erik?
He's going to figure it out. He goes, I'll get back to you, but I want to get out there person to person and make it more than what the blog is offering.
Well, what do you mean by in person?
He says work with spirit translators in an in-person setting.
Okay.
How's that, Mom?
That sounds perfect.
Okay.
Well, and it is one of the challenges that we've encountered, like when people want to interview Erik, because this is Erik's book. We want you to be present, Erik, and it's just, how do we? I I so respect what Jamie does. Jamie, I think it's amazing what you do. But how do we get you here? Do you foresee that there's some way coming that are we hurrying up enough for you?
He loves that. He's pretending like he's a magician, like looking under his arm for like extra people. And he goes, I'm gonna be looking everywhere to find more people that I can, he says the term is not really used, but work with and support and get them to stand up and be bigger. And he says they might not stand up and say, hey, I'm talking to Erik, but they might call it Google or something else. But I don't have to be identified as Erik all the time because my ego's not that big. And I'm just really interested in helping humanity and people. But I really want to continue what the blog is doing.
Hmm. And I want to mention one more time for everybody that we do have a sale going on for My Life After Death. Here it is, beautiful pearlized cover by Erik. It comes out today, and you can get it for $10 at the website beyondword.com/Erik with a K. And we're coming up on the end of our time, and I would just love to give all three of you an opportunity to just say one last thought. What is it that you really want people to take away from reading this book, from being a part of this world? What is it? What do you want them to walk away from this interview with today? We'll start with. Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Lisa.
I want them to know again that just because somebody dies does not mean you forget about them. It's not, a door is not shut. It's just a door to a different dimension, and you should try to continue to have a relationship with him or her.
Awesome. Erik says, I'm right behind my mom. He goes, that's the number one thing I want. He goes, if we can lessen the sorrow or get people to understand really what grief is and that it's not quite necessary to have to continue the relationship, like grief keeps you really grounded. It's almost like that separating divide. It's further away when you're grieving. The happier you are, not saying one is better than the other, it is what it is, but it changes your vibrational pattern and it's easier to communicate to the beyond or subtle energy when you have a smile on your face. Because that's really what I want to provide people with.
Well, and Erik, the way that you speak about grief, it seems like it's still okay for people to grieve. It's something that they have to do, but it's not the grieving of losing someone.
Right. He goes, nice choice of words, because there's no loss. There's no loss. Loss is something gone forever, never return. Okay, I will clarify. Yeah, you're losing the physical body, but the personality, the character, the words, the love, the relationship, all of that is still there. It's just in a different format.
Awesome. And Jamie?
It sounds strange, but I found, even though I was born with the ability to perceive energy, and the way I learned was being confused, hearing stories that were maybe a little out of my reach and that I didn't want to believe in or understand or give validity to. And it was those stories that encouraged me to look for more personal evidence, to go deeper. And I hope Erik's book does that for people who are reading and saying, this could be a possibility. And maybe I can look at this more. And it'll encourage them to look at their own belief systems and really identify what's serving them. Create change.
Well, and I want people out there to know that this book is not just for people who believe. This book is not for people who don't believe. This book is for everybody. It's something to read, exactly like Jamie said. What you said, Jamie, is so perfect, because it's like we always assume that's like you're not one that's on the fence, Jamie. We assume that you're a believer. You're there. But this book is for people to inquire, to explore, to find their spot on the fence.
Well said.
Brilliant. Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Well, everybody go out and get your spot on the fence right here, My Life After Death, at beyondword.com/Erik. And I just want to say thank you to all three of you for joining us today. It's just been a pleasure, and it's been very confronting for me. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Whitney.
Erik says, thank you
Thank-
so much. Thank everybody. I love you.
Thank you, Jamie. I love you, Erik.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Erik. Thank you, Elisa. And to everybody out there watching, if you have any more questions, be sure to send them to us, and we'll send them along to Elisa, Erik, and Jamie. And also just be sure to watch us next time, and we'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye.